So this might be maybe one of the most meta podcasts we've ever done because I feel like AG1 is ubiquitous and synonymous with the podcast game. And now we have the global brand and sports partnership. Lisa, welcome to Second Nature.
Thank you so much for that intro, Aaron. I'm so stoked to be here and be chatting with you about sports marketing and everything in the industry.
I was prepping for this interview and I opened up my notebook and I just started writing stuff that I wanted to talk about. And I filled a page and then I filled another page. And, we've had to kind of go back and forth to sort of whittle it down a little bit here. But what I think would be a really fun place to go during this conversation is to really provide people some tactical insights into like partnership 101 from both the creator athlete side of things as well as the brand side of things. Because I think if I'm honest, there's some room for improvement probably on either side of this exchange. But maybe you could give me just a little bit of a background of how you got into this role and what you do at AG1.
So yeah, how I got involved into this role. I was in the sports industry for over 10 years now. I came directly from a job I held in at Ironman, where I was in sponsorship acquisition, so basically on the other side, and moved over to the brand, and was very excited about that. It was a very young company, even though it was AG1 is in the market since 2010, but this opportunity arose as kind of felt like joining a startup in the EU and building something from scratch, which was hugely exciting for me to do. And it didn't at the beginning didn't have much to do with the sports industry as such. As you know, like we have been in the creator economy and podcast economy for a really, really long time, and have built our foot there and kind of established ourselves as one of the leaders in that space. And now we're looking to grow out of this and expand into new marketing channels, which is very exciting as well. So the journey of my last 4 years with AG1 has been very varied, and there was never a dull moment. And this year is going to be very exciting for us. We have a lot of news coming out in a couple months. So yeah, I think it's the people and also the evolution of the brand that kept me here, and this is extremely exciting to be part of. And this major growth phase, not only in the EU or in the US, but really globally, as we have a big team in APAC as well, and ramping that up further as well, and diving into new channels, new verticals. Sports marketing is very new to us as well. And yeah, here I am.
That's so exciting. Well, if what you're going to do is anything like what you've done already, I expect AG1 to sort of lead the way on some of the innovations, some of the best practices. I've seen some stuff pop out, like there was like a vending machine that I saw pop up at an airport and a bunch of stuff like that. And I think I see actually a lot of similarity when it comes to AG1 with Red Bull, where it was like the product itself was nailed from the beginning, and then it was all about getting it into the right hands and introducing new people to it and making people aware of the benefits of it. And I think you probably have a similar goal there, where it's like, yeah, we know what we're doing here. We made this thing, and now we're going to make sure that we can get it in as many people's hands to have them have this sort of brand experience with us and move on from there.
Yeah,
Well,
100%. I mean, Red Bull is incredible what they've built. They have built an incredible media company and a huge community outside of the action sports industry, even. And that's exactly what we're after as well, to build a movement. Community is front and center in everything we do. We listen to our customers. So customer centricity is our number one driver of like where we're going, and we constantly conducting interviews with our AG1 members and connecting with the community on different levels, may that be virtually or also in real life. Just came from a weekend in Oceanside, where we activated at the Ironman 70.3 and had some incredible community activations, including an AG1 Statline breakfast. We had a ride together with one of our apparel brands to create this amazing AG1 custom suits. So yeah, just feeling connected with the community, being there when they need us, and supporting them on race day as well. It was just super valuable to see that and experience that in real life.
That Oceanside 70.3 seems kind of like the big kickoff for the season. Obviously, there's other races before it, but that one has some sort of energy behind it that I feel like everybody is really just excited to be present in that one singular moment. Big shout out to our friend Eric Lagerstrom, who actually premiered a film at
We did.
Oceanside as
Yeah.
well. So cool. I actually got to see the advanced copy of it, and it blew my mind a little bit. So, yeah, we'll come back to that. I would love to go through and talk about best practices and maybe worst practices. I think we can kind of go through the partnership life cycle together. So you obviously are still doing this now at AG1. I previously did this when I was at Aura. We worked with a lot of creators and stuff. Actually, one thing I want to kind of go back to that I think is kind of interesting. You talked about the different communities. And I think that on the strategy thus far, you've worked with a lot of creators from podcasts and everywhere else. And I think something that's really special and sort of the why of partnerships in my mind is that you're able to reach out and connect with so many communities via the creator, via the athlete, and connect to the communities that surround that person. And there's really no better place to elicit that feedback in an honest and open way than through those communities. And so I think when a lot of people think about partnerships, they're really thinking, okay, my branding's here. I'm going to have this athlete on my roster to prove that my product is good. But what I think a lot of people miss is that, hey, there's a big community that has a voice that trusts this person but also feels comfortable enough to give feedback to that person and to the partners that they have. Does that kind of ring true to you as well?
Yeah, 100%. You want to be on the same level kind of as your partners and as your community. And I think one of the reasons why I'm successful in the sport, or why I was able to connect with, for example, the endurance industry, is because I'm an athlete myself, and I do triathlons, I do road races and gravel races, and I'm active also in the whole outdoor industry. So I know their language, I know how they feel when they line up on race day, and just like just sharing this mindset with them helps me so much to connect with them, and they feel connected to me. And also I think we're going further into this later on, like what an onboarding of an athlete or even like our community looks like at AG1 is we want them to feel part of our team, of our community, and we want to listen to their needs and what they expect from a partnership and what they value in, and then respond to that. And yeah, same is true to the customer as well.
So important to be a practitioner of the communities that you are a part of. I think that's so important. So really, I kind of carved out five different categories or different steps in the life cycle of a partnership, and I think we can go through each one of them and kind of talk through each one. But what I would kind of rough in is like you have this prospecting phase, there's a relationship building phase, a goals and alignment phase, an execution phase, and sort of like a post partnership phase is sort of that. And so what I want to do is kind of take us through that whole thing, and I think we're going to try to tee this up for both the brands themselves as well as maybe the athletes and stuff that are because you eventually go through this process together. And I've been thinking a lot about this whole partnership thing from the perspective of both sides and specifically the athletes. you know, a lot of athletes will go through this sort of prospecting phase and they're just shotgunning out resumes and cold emails and stuff like that. And I'm sure just like me, I'm sure you've been at the receiving end of probably 8 million of these cold emails. But when you're looking at an athlete or a creator or really any potential partner, what are the things that from that first point of communication really stand out to you as sort of a best practice or something that you wish more people would do?
Yeah, maybe even taking a step back of like how I approach, like I want to be in the driver's seat of like who to work with, like which athletes, which agents, and which verticals. So I like to drive that conversation rather than being forced into a partnership. And what we value most is like brand awareness, brand visibility in those different communities that we want to serve and that hold most of our core audiences. So we're very laser focused on specific sports and affinities. And then also we want not boring people. We want people that are interesting, have inspiring stories, because the athletes play a crucial role in inspiring our communities. So for me, it's very important to select the right talent. And yeah, we are very selective, and I can go deeper into our selection process and what I'm looking at. But yeah, we want to create these incredible stories about our athletes and leveraging them at all our own, but also paid media, to also our mission, to drive our mission, which is to empower people to live a healthy lifestyle, and take ownership of their own health. And that's always the ultimate goal. And like who fits that mission will ultimately define like the who will be a partner of ours. So we definitely look at qualitative and quantitative measures. But the first and most important one is this person a good human? Like how do they show up for others? How are they perceived in their community and around them, outside the sport? Do they represent our brand values? Especially high performance, continuous improvement. That's obviously true to almost any athlete in a way, but also do they take radical ownership of the decisions they've made in the past? Are they showing courage? Are they high performer? So do these athletes and personalities have podium potential where it would make sense for AG1's logo to be presented on a kit or on their hat, and do we have the ability to shine on the stage? So that will play a role as well. And then AG1 is all about the morning. We position ourselves as being there for morning people. We don't always take the morning literally, but the morning is a fresh start, basically, for how you set up your day, but also it could be the next chapter in your life, so metaphorically. So yeah, does the person have this value, and like does he show up in the morning, and what does his morning routine look like? And then what does the athlete stand for outside of the sports? What is he or she known for? Is something that I'd look for as well. Like we want to, with the athlete that we work with, create value to the community, and that's often also outside their sports. Like how much are they sharing? Do they have more roles than just being an athlete? Like do they have a family? Are they a mom? What does their lifestyle look like outside of sports? Like do they share their nutrition? Do they have any health issues? Are they giving back to the community? We have athletes that are very much involved in like for example, a run club, or leading local community rides, having their own charity and supporting communities around the world. So that's something that I value a lot, and we're always happy to support those athletes on those projects. There's an example or an anecdote. I got a pitch from somebody who wanted to run 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. Yes, well, this sounds exciting and is a record-breaking feat if you do it. Like, but what does it really mean? Like, it means that you have to have almost a private jet to go from A to B, and like support. Like, it seems a bit too much. Like, it's too over the top, and like it's very inaccessible as well, and also not sustainable. Yeah, if we look at sustainability, it's not something that we want to support. So it would probably not be the right project to work with for us. Coming back to the evaluation criteria, we also look at, does the athlete transcend the sport? Like, are they known outside of what they do? Do they have they built their own brand? Like, what channels are they are they playing on, in what frequency, what type of content are they posting? Is it just selfies of them running? Are they only posting their running route and nothing about themselves? Um, yeah, it comes back to adding value to the community. Obviously, also looking at some quantitative KPIs like story views or story view rate to followers and their engagement. Hitting the right geos is important to us as well. Yes, we are a global company, but we have focuses on certain areas like North America, Europe, and in Asia, also certain countries. Then also male female splits, if we want to go into that much detail, especially if a male athlete only has female audience, you'd have to think like how much impact does this partnership or this person have in the community. Maybe there are other values that community are after than hearing from them what they put in their body if they can't relate to him or her directly, and age as well. Like, we have a premium product for a premium customer, and it's probably not the 20-year-old out of college who would maybe spend their money somewhere else and maybe doesn't have the long-term health mindset that we're aiming for.
I mean, I guess what you're saying is that it's not as simple as just being on the podium a lot. Like, that's not enough.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like it's nice to be like an accomplished athlete, but then we also want to be part of the journey for somebody to achieve these things. And yeah, same as, for example, Red Bull. Also, they recruit up and coming athletes and are with them for years to come. And we definitely have come into some sports signing like the bigger names, but I think when we look at the overall portfolio, we try to scatter it out and have like athletes in the different life cycles, basically. Because sometimes you do need the bigger name to get the awareness in a certain sport. For example, we just signed with the Rippers, the golf team. They play on the Live Tour. They had a really fantastic weekend. Mark Leishman did win the single title, and the team is ranked on number one again. So that's a huge win for us as well. We also signed with the US SailGP team. I was actually able to witness one of these races in LA and also in San Francisco over the last few weeks while I'm here in California. It's a fascinating sport that I've never been in touch with prior. It's basically the Formula One on the water, and it's very different to the endurance world that I've been in prior.
It's interesting the Sail GP. I had a chance to work with the America's Cup team when they first came to San Francisco. And I think one thing that's really cool now with the ability to create social media content around these different sports, you're getting a lot more insight into what's going on. The America's Cup Sail GP stuff is so crazy, and the depth of technology and athleticism and tactics, you don't get a chance to really like get that across the line in any other way when they're on the water, right? That you don't really
Right.
you can't appreciate how insane those sports actually are unless you have sort of that fly on the wall social media angle to it. But now that social media is everywhere and everybody's got a 360 camera or whatever, you actually get a chance to appreciate that stuff, which I think is opening up opportunities for a lot more sports that maybe were at arm's length because who was going to sit on a Sail GP boat and really truly appreciate what went into it. So I think there's a really cool way to be at that intersection of something that, I mean, sailing has been around for ages, but this iteration of it is so fascinating because you can now open it up to more people as spectators,
Yeah,
at least.
definitely. And I feel like the US team is investing a lot in this fan engagement and also sharing a lot more behind the scenes content. Like, Anna Weiss is the only female in the whole league in the grinder position. Like, she's basically powering the boat. and it's insane. If I met her, she's a badass woman, often trains here in LA. It's just fascinating to see what these athletes train on a day-to-day basis versus how often they actually go on the sailboat, which is not often. It's really just during those 14 races they do a year. But other than that, they train in the gyms and try to keep themselves fit to get the power they need for like these 12 to 16-minute races on the water. So it's really full out efforts on the water, which is, yeah, it's fascinating.
I want to try to summarize as best I can sort of the point that you made from both the athlete and the brand side of things. But really, when it comes down to the athletes, what you'd be looking for or what brands should be looking for is someone who represents a wide group of people. Like you mentioned, somebody who might even be a parent, but they're competing, makes content that is relatable to lots of people, but also has the edge to potentially show up on a podium. And as a brand that's trying to reach people in different categories, demographics, you have the ability to bring lots of different people on board. It's not like there's a singular archetype of AG1 athlete, for example, which is a great opportunity for people who, represent every sport, every facet of each sport. But you also, really kind of highlighted that, yeah, winning stuff is sometimes important, but that wasn't the only thing on the list by any means. And so to me, that also means that there's a lot of other ways to be successful. But really, what it comes down to is essentially demonstrating your expertise on the internet, building a community, being able to speak credibly to that community, and being able to share your lifestyle that matches up with what AG1 is trying to offer within their product. And that alignment, the what I call the value proposition of the athlete, has to be congruent to what AG1 is trying to do. And if you can do those things, you'll be in good shape. Does that sound right from what we'd want to tell an athlete?
Sounds pretty spot on. Yeah, it's definitely an advantage for us to not have a product for one singular sport or not even for sports, because AG1 is really just for just about everybody. Like, you don't have to be a pro athlete to benefit from AG1, because with AG1 you support your overall health, and that could be gut health and immune system, your energy levels throughout the day, and concentration and mood. So there's so many aspects that, yes, are valuable for the athlete, but yeah, also just for you and me who don't train maybe every day and get out there and hit the next PR every day.
I think one of the other things from the brand side of things is having a very clear idea of who you want to be for and how the people you're working with are congruent to that group of people, and having a really clear idea of what you need to do. And I think we'll get into a little bit more of like the KPI, the key performance indicator of the brand, and how that matches up to the athletes and creators that we work with. But I think at the top level, understanding what your job is, who you're trying to reach, and what archetype of creator, athlete, you name it, is going to best match and reach that community is probably the first place to start when you're in the driver's seat and trying to sort of pick it out. I think a lot of people have sort of different ways of deciding what that mixture is going to be. Some people want to be in the driver's seat. Other people are just trying to open the door and see kind of who comes through. And most people, I think, are sort of in the middle. I famously signed a Red Bull athlete from I was actually at the dentist, and the person who was checking my insurance card was like, "Oh, you work for Red Bull? What do you do?" Introduced me to someone who would eventually become my athlete because it was his roommate. So that was sort of but again, like, I wanted to find somebody in that category. I had it defined, but then it came to me, and it was like such a crazy story.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I'm no expert in many different sports, right? I did a lot of research in sailing to identify, yes, HTP is an exciting up and coming growing sport with a lot of new investors coming in. I think Mbappe just invested in the French team as well. Lindsey Vonn is involved in the US HTP team. So yeah, it's finding the right experts in the different sports that can get me or you that insight is crucial when you first start out and like branching out into new affinities and sports. But yeah, there's when I say I want to be in the driver's seat, like, I mean, as you know from Red Bull as well, you get pitches every day, like hundreds of them, and you need to kind of prioritize at some point, like who do you put resources, where do you put resources to? And it can get overwhelming if it comes from so many different sources, and every agent wants to hear your story, your strategy, so they can. That's even the good part, if they do ask that prior to pitching you, right? Because a lot of
Yes.
people just come out the gate and like, hey, I have these 10 athletes for you, or 50 athletes in my roster, who do you want? Without knowing anything about the brand, where we headed, our goals for the next couple months, and what's really important to us. So I think listening first is crucial, but then also you can't have this same conversation with five representatives of the same agency.
That is the golden nugget right there. When you are starting these conversations, when you are prospecting brands to work with or developing relationships, asking them where they're headed, what they're trying to do, and then tailoring your response or your pitch based on that. If there's any piece of advice I think I would give anybody from the outside, that's probably it. Because if you got in front of somebody to be able to speak to them, you maybe already crossed over the barrier of credibility, legitimacy, whatever. But at that point, they don't need to be pitched again on why you're good. You need to understand from them what they're trying to do so that you can decide if it's a congruent and meaningful relationship to pursue, because you can be the best athlete in the world, but if AG1 isn't looking for the best athlete in the world, then maybe they're looking for something completely different, and you keep pitching them and you're like, why doesn't this work? It's because you didn't ask those qualifying questions at the way into the relationship. And I think that's where a lot of people miss it. One other piece of advice that I give a lot of people from the athlete side too is to try to listen for the different phrases that the person at the brand uses, because
That's a good
those are
one.
those are talking points. And if you reiterate those phrases in your pitch or in your response email, it shows that person from the brand that you're actually paying attention to their goals and you're aligned with their goals, and that you did this with intention. You didn't just copy paste the same form email to 10 sponsors, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that, I mean, I expected even more so from agents or agencies that reach out to than the athlete. I'd say I do accept athlete pitches when they come straight away, and introducing themselves and their best practices there for sure as well, and like things you don't want to do.
I can imagine the opposite side. The worst case scenario is just, yeah, the cold email, or even worse, like like almost like people will stalk us on LinkedIn and then like hunt us down in person or whatever. It can be really, really awkward. And I think when people do that and then come right out with a pitch, it's like an instant no. Even if there was something legitimate there, it's just like the approach, the nuance, the tact can go a long way too. That stuff is
100%.
important.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn invites have been so frequent these times, and there's no shame in like just adding your LinkedIn with no intro whatsoever. Like I usually decline. So
Yeah, yeah,
there's no chance I'm gonna accept whoever it is. Doesn't have to be an athlete or agent, whoever it is,
yeah.
without an intro is a straight out no, unless I see the immediate value in connecting. If I don't know you, it's not great.
Yeah, just randomly shooting your shot from a cold email, not the move. And the thing that I think is really important, and this goes for kind of both sides of this equation, is like if this person actually is truly the right person, you're going to be working with them for a long time. How would you want to build up that good relationship? You would want to build it on trust, on value, on credibility. Going to somebody with your hand out asking for support, money, resources on the first meeting doesn't really breed any of those things. And so, what if it works out? Wouldn't you want to start off on the right foot with this person? And wouldn't you want to get to know them as a person, make them your advocate within the brand, as opposed to just coming up and asking them for stuff?
100%. Yeah, and I think the best way to approach a brand, or me as well, in particular, is if you have this prior experience with our product. I mean, there's no better way in, right, than telling me like, "Hey, I love AG1. I've taken it for X amount of time, and this is why, and how it helped me." So that just giving me that insight first thing, like top of the email, is the perfect way to get my attention. And if you don't have that prior experience, the second best is showing interest in trying the product out first. That's your number one goal: getting the product to try it out and find out what it could solve. Like, you might have problem with your gut health, and want to try it, you want to maybe address that. That's a good one too. Obviously, nothing should be staged. It should all be authentic and,
Yeah.
and real. um, but yeah, that would definitely be the best approach, I'd say. And then obviously I want to get to know the athletes a little bit better, and what their values are, also their motivation behind working with us as a brand, besides just getting money. Like, what else is in it for them, and then also show their value to us. Like, what what could a partnership look like? I obviously can Google every athlete and can find out their achievements and stuff. So they don't need to send me 10 pages of all their achievements. Top 5 achievements would probably suffice. But what can I not see on the internet? For example, what is the future plan? Like, what are the racing schedule look like? What other projects do they have lined up? Are they in film opportunities that AG1 could be part of it? So all these things, I think, matter also in the outreach and in the pitch, because that's kind of what I'm more interested in. And also, what does the athlete value, and like how AG1 can support them, as that beyond the monetary support. Like, do they have a foundation? Do they need extra money to make a film project possible, or are they running a run club or serving the community in different ways that they want AG1 to be part of? So those kind of things. Obviously, some stats on their social channel would be great. If there is opportunity for branding, which right now is a focus for us, is maybe they can do a mock-up of where the logo on their kit could sit and how that looks like, or what it looks like. So yeah, I think they can cover quite a lot in an initial pitch deck, rather than put everything in an email. But yeah, leading with the experience of the product and the interest in us, in the partnership, would be the number one.
This really is sort of second phase of this whole process, right? Of like building the relationship. You made it through the door and now you get to have these slightly deeper conversations. And I think what you kind of hit on too is understanding who this athlete is and getting some additional surface area for what the partnership might actually look like. What are the things that we could do to activate this partnership? What would a long term partnership entail? What are the other opportunities for us to support you that maybe aren't public yet, where we could actually have a big thing? Because I think for as important as branding can sometimes be on podiums and everything else, the depth of engagement and activation and the depth of involvement in some of these bigger athlete projects is something that's really really valuable to brands. And using Red Bull, going back to them as an example, if you ask somebody about Red Bull, how many people would first start to talk about a Red Bull athlete project that was done versus Red Bull athlete branding that was done? You might reference your favorite athlete, sure, but most people go to like, oh, Stratos, when that guy jumped out of space. That was an athlete project. That was surface area that was created through the relationship. And so while while I doubt you're sending lots of people up to space and having them jump out, understanding what your athlete and creator roster is up to and how you might play a more meaningful role in the execution of those things, I think helps you internally as well when you're going through and pitching and setting budgets aside and developing your own marketing plans. How do we tie these things together? It's not like two separate columns of like, they're going to race, we're going to put branding on stuff. It's like, no, no, where is that crossover? And this relationship phase is so, so important for figuring out exactly what that's supposed to look like, I think.
Yeah, 100% agree on that.
What other things are you doing during that kind of relationship phase before the ink is dry on the contract? What does that look like from a brand perspective as you're kind of tracking towards locking down? Like, okay, this is gonna be a deal that we're gonna do.
So prior to signing them, you mean them?
Yeah, yeah. As you're getting closer to ink on the contract, are there any other steps or any other things that you're kind of doing from the brand side?
We definitely do an intro call. So I want to know the athlete in person or like over in a virtual call and have that open conversation and yeah, just get to get to go a little bit under the surface and see hear their motivation and hear them talk about AG1 and how they talk about AG1. So that is important to me to have the direct relationship and really set us up for success from the very beginning and not just talk through the agents and going back and forth on terms. But yeah, that's a crucial element in the pre-signing process, I'd say.
And I think the next step really, as you kind of build on top of that, you start locking in the contracts. The next thing that you're doing kind of post contract is this real big alignment on your collective goals of what you're planning to execute. Because it's not typically just like a one and done, I would imagine. After all that work, just a single
Yeah.
post online or a single podcast or whatever is, it is meant to be sort of a long-term style partnership where there is an alignment. And I guess I'd be curious. I have a couple different questions here of, why long term? Like, why does it make sense? And also, how do you think about do you put like a calendar together for your partnership and kind of the key points when it comes to activating the athlete? Like, kind of what's your thought process when it comes to this next step of goals and alignment, kind of post contract signing?
Yeah, so maybe like before signing, you definitely want to be clear on the goals and the expectations on both the athlete side and also the brand side, and then execute on those plans and what's in the contract as close as possible by the end of the year, the term. And yeah, we definitely schedule onboarding calls with every athlete. So I just had an onboarding call with Christina Lustenberger. I don't know if you know her, a Canadian free skier. She definitely skis in high altitude and has insane projects. She's a daredevil. So yeah, we lead that call and like giving a deep dive into our brand, where we come from, our history, but also the theme around mourning people and like really try to make a connection and make it relevant to that specific athlete. And then also I bring on board one of our nutrition experts from the R&I team, research and development, to give a deep dive in on the product side and like just open it for questions because they're definitely AG1 is a product that you can talk 3 days about probably and how much research we put into it. But yeah, there are some basic questions that come up very often to address those with the athletes and then kind of talk them through like what's next for them, like what competitions there are upcoming, where can we be part of, or where are we seeing synergies with our event schedule already, how can we put them together with potential other partners of ours, or we do have a shoot lined up, for example, early May, trying to secure some athletes for that. It's always interesting to weave in our athletes and kind of at the end of the year, I'm see there's also a self-assessment phase, right? Like how did we leverage all our athletes in the best way possible, and were we able to serve our internal creative needs with the portfolio that we have? So yeah, it goes a little bit both ways. One thing that our athletes told me in the last onboarding course, that what they value really really highly is frequent and very transparent communication, and I think that's super crucial throughout the whole partnership, to know we're on the same page, and also to identify those opportunities that may not be super clear in the beginning of the partnership, but as we go further into it, new opportunities come up, and then trying to connect those pieces and doing things together. And I make an effort into meeting every partner of ours in person at some point during the term, rather sooner than later. Just adds another layer of in the relationship with our athletes.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. With the onboarding process that you do, we have a similar had a similar one at Red Bull, and actually part of it was we'd bring them in the office and sort of run them through like the car wash of like, you're gonna meet the brand team, you're gonna meet our nutritionist, you're gonna meet the high performance team, we're gonna do a photo shoot, so that you have your content pool photos ready to go. We kind of run them through a sort of 2 day sprint where they got to do all that stuff and then meet everybody in person that they were going to work with. I'd be curious to know how heavy-handed you might be on sort of your goals for the partnership, because I've heard kind of different versions of this from different people at different brands, where sometimes people are like, we don't want to push them too hard on like our own personal or brand's goals because we don't want it to feel too inauthentic. But at the same time, I feel like you have to do a service to the athletes of letting them know what they're basically being judged on as well. If a contract ends, they want to know, like, could they have done anything to prevent that from happening? Where do you where do you bring that into the conversation? Is this something upfront of like, we're signing you for these reasons, or yeah, go out and do your thing. We like what you do, and we already know that it's congruent to where we're trying to go. How do you fold your goals into that onboarding?
I mean, part of that will probably shine through in the contract, right? Not all contracts are the same. They're actually very varied, because there are athletes that have more podium potential, where we put a much higher value into where the logo is positioned on the athlete, versus another one might not even compete professionally anymore, and we put value more into the content creation, or so on their or content on their channels, versus on how do we use them in our channels, but also in real life activation. So we do a lot more with our community on the ground right now, and trying to weave in our partners and how they could add like money can buy opportunities for like a select group of AG1 members, for example, to just really build out that kind of membership experience as well, and like value to become an AG1 customer over long time. So really creating those incentives. So it's really very varied from athlete to athlete, like where the focus will be. But like in general, yes, we want to create awareness in those particular communities they serve in, and then also create stories, may that be on their channels and on our channels, and ultimately um, bring energy and bring the brand to life, and that's what it's all about. Like we one of our CMO that we just recently acquired from Yeti, his number one KPI is energy. I love hearing that, because yeah, if you go to an event and you see AG1, we definitely want to be known for like the brand that brings the energy, brings the community together, and it is there for the community to support, rather than like the sad booth that nobody goes to.
I love that. I think that's so cool. And the fact that you're so specific about the contracts to match sort of the KPIs that you have for that individual athlete. I feel like so many teams are kind of having these blanket contracts where it's like, all right, you're on the team, you're an ambassador, like you do these things just like everybody else. And this idea of, wait, this athlete and this athlete actually offer different things to our brand. And even I've got to imagine in sort of that prospecting phase, just like you talked about all the different criteria, you're also thinking about, okay, we need a handful of athletes that can prove out in a race situation that they're going to make it to the top of the podium. We need a handful of athletes that can prove out that they have a deep connection with the community and they can reach a different group of people. And so, the three kind of groupings that we have, right, is awareness, consideration, conversion. I always like to say you can do two at once. So you do three, the whole thing falls apart. And in mountain biking, there's another similar saying. It's cheap, light, strong, pick two. And and so I feel like it's the same thing when it comes to partnerships of you could probably get two, but if you try to get three, everything kind of falls apart.
Yeah, same with the product, right? You can't serve everybody at the same time. You do have to make choices and have to prioritize certain things because we all have limited capacity. So yeah, we want to stay in our lane, and so that's why we currently focus much more on individual athletes. Besides those few teams that we've announced with the sailing team and the golf team, and in the UK we're partnering with England Rugby, which is a great partnership for the market where rugby is such a big deal. But besides that, we're really more focused on the athlete itself, and also don't focus too much on like a league sponsorship or like putting our logo up on the stadium, because yeah, it's the human that also consumes AG1, and that's why we want to tell the story with that particular human and what it does for him or her, rather than yeah what you tell about a stadium that features the AG1 logo.
I've been thinking about this a lot, this difference between a crowd and a community. And I think you totally nailed it, right? A crowd is who shows up at a stadium. The community is so switched on, so engaged, and so intentional of who they follow, why they follow, that trust and authority that comes with it. And, in today's day and age of being able to rapidly build crowds through algorithms versus slowly and meticulously build the community, I think a lot of smart marketers are figuring out specifically how to find those communities and why someone that might have 50,000 followers is more valuable than somebody that has 500,000 followers, right? And really making the case for that, because there have been times when the pendulum's been on the other side where it just felt like this volume play, but then they realized they weren't getting their return on it the same way that working with maybe a smaller audience but a more engaged audience might be, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that also comes down to like the credibility, right? Like if we work with the best athletes, like they stand for the being credible, and they also only trust like high quality products. And AG1 is third party tested. We're spending millions on third party research and new studies all the time, and make sure that we have the NSF certification, for example, is one of the testaments for our quality and safety control. So that's why the athletes and Olympians and pro athletes and Olympians do trust us, is because of all the research and stuff that we put into, and ultimately also the communities. Like we need those community leaders to spread the word of mouth. And we have a community team in the US that's really focused on building this mode, this movement, with different community leaders in the different sports that we call change agents. And those really are, maybe they only have 500 or 5,000 followers, but they creating change within smaller communities that then, and this the sense of togetherness helps them stick to a healthy routine to workouts, because they're meeting 2, 3, 4 times a week to run together. And that's, I think, what's valuable. And if we can attach AG1 to these smaller communities, it will ultimately spread out. And at some point, it's basically this niche to mass approach that we're taking. And in some affinities, we have been in longer, like in running, for example, we have a very established community base as well as in triathlon. But for example, in climbing or surfing, that doesn't exist yet. But yeah, at some point we'll get there. That's like the goal.
Speaking of the execution, and we've kind of started going into this a little bit already. I'm walking us through the different steps here as promised. When it comes to execution, when you're working with, let's just pull content creators out as an example, what are the things that brands should be doing to set them up for success? Because I think, there's different kinds of pieces of content that you would create. You could create meta ads, you could create collaborative reels, you could do integration, which would be like a 30-second or 60-second bit that fits inside a longer form video. What are the things that you think brands need to do to make sure that the creators are effective as they possibly can be?
Yeah, those are. It also depends on the person, right? There are some athletes or creators who are creative themselves, and they have tons of ideas and come to a brand and pitch like new ideas every time, and they send you the content. Everything's great. So you have those, but then you have other creators or athletes that need a little bit more hand holding or like more guidance, and we're happy to help them create that content that's ultimately needed on our end. So creating good briefs, and we went through a lot of iterations of our briefings, both for creators and athletes, and constantly asking for feedback as well, and like also seeing like what content comes back from that briefing versus another one, and did we nail that, or does it need iteration? So we're constantly working on improving there to really, yeah, make it as short as possible, and so the athlete or the videographer or photographer really fully understands what's needed. And sometimes that's a video call prior to the person creating that content with the creator or athlete, and sometimes it's just like sending over that particular brief. But yeah, I learned that it has to be super specific, because you don't know what else can go wrong if it's not written down. Like it starts with taking off the sticker on the bottle at the bottom. I've seen tons of pictures with that, not ideal. Or like what other apparel they use, what's the contrast between their background and what they're wearing in the shoot, and then also how comfortable they are in front of the camera, right? Like some creators often just do voiceovers over video or only pictures. We try to stay away from just stills, because a video just creates so much more emotion and you can tell so much more. Um, so that's even like, yeah, that's we'll look at that even in the selection process, so well prior to selecting the creator and partner that we work with.
I feel like the effort that goes into it always comes back to you though. When you don't put the energy into collaborating with the partner that's creating the content, like you talked about having briefs and being really specific about stuff and even sharing maybe tops and flops with that person. If you don't do that kind of stuff, you're not going to get anything usable in most cases on the first draft. But if you put in that extra effort in the front, boy, does it make a difference, I think.
100%. Yeah, I have terminated partnerships before they even went live. Content was signed. We're waiting for content, and just wasn't up to our standards, even after multiple iteration. And at some point, when you think you're like, either the partner doesn't want to put more effort in, but then it's not the right partnership, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah, he can. So that happened a few times before, not too often, for the amount of partnerships that I've that I've closed, but it does happen. Not with athletes, though, I have to say.
I mean, I just want to take a mini detour here because, one thing that's true about AG1 is that you have worked with some absolutely massive, massive names. Andrew Huberman's, both a scientific advisor as well as a partner. I mean, there's some really, really huge people. What is that like? I mean, the day to day of that, or what goes into managing a giant partnership? Because I've got to imagine, I mean, their audience is mega and the impact on the business too.
Yeah, 100%. And we treat those partnerships um, really, really well. Like we have an own, like our partnership team is pretty big in house, and for those VVIPs that are really crucial for our business. I mean, all partners are crucial for the business, but some are just huge volume drivers as well, and they have been a friend to the brand for even much longer than that we have started a partnership. Like for example, you mentioned Huberman. He's been taking AG1 for 10 years. So almost from the very beginning on, when it ever existed, but we haven't started partnering with him until like much later. So yeah, they have their own team that frequently checks in with them. With Human, he's a special case because he's also our advisor, scientific advisor. So there's a lot of communication also with our research and product development team. Not sure exactly how frequently that is, but I'd assume since there's a lot going on at the moment, that he's very much involved. So yeah, it's excited to have like thought leaders like a Human support our brand and stand behind it, and really use it daily.
It's interesting how he started just like everyone else has started in this process. Like if you go back to that prospecting phase where you're first starting to meet people, demonstrating that like I already use this stuff and I have been using it for a long time. And also, not only is he one of the number one podcasters, but he's got a lot more to offer from the realms of science and everything else. So I think it's really interesting how you've got this VVIP example, but if you go back to the fundamentals of how he came into the brand, it's nearly identical to how everyone else either would or should come into the brand as well. There's no, extra special thing. Still have to do still have to do the fundamentals the right way in the very beginning and then build up from there. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Okay, I want to go into our final step here, and that is sort of the post mortem, if we want to call it that, or the post contract, or even at the end of the first year of a contract or something. What are the things that you're thinking about as you sort of cross that barrier, that line when it comes to the partners that you are working with?
Yeah. So I think throughout the whole partnership, it's crucial to stay flexible. Yes, you have a contract with written terms and written asset list, but as we all know, it doesn't always go to plan. Athlete season changes. There could be injuries. There could be health issues. They may not stay. They may not be at the start line as often as they've promised or wanted to. So just really trying to work with the athlete, and that also comes back to like having this constant flow of communication and exchange with them and their management, to find solutions to that. And yeah, there are a lot of creative ways to compensate for things that are unforeseen. For example, you can't show up at those races, but how else can you add value to the brand during that partnership? And that for some athlete, that could be being even more active on social media or show up in real life activations that we do and lead maybe a shakeout run or do a meet and greet session or come to an AG1 member dinner or breakfast in our case. So yeah, just creating those different kind of values throughout the year. I'm not the one who's like sitting down, and if the contract says, hey, you have 10 social media posts and you've only done 8, to make a big deal out of it. But I definitely have an eye out on like all our athletes and how engaged they are with our brand throughout the year. And some athletes go above and beyond, others only do the bare minimum. So that definitely plays a role. And when you towards the end of your renegotiation or towards the end of your term. And then obviously a minor role also, how often have they been on the podium and how well have they represented AG1 on that big stage, or if it's not an athlete who's racing or who's competing anymore, but like what were the other opportunities that we were able to show up with that athlete, potentially film integrations, how that's often comes back to the athletes. Have they mentioned us in like random interviews, like more organic reach kind of thing? And then ultimately have to strengthen our brand and put energy into it in a way. And that's obviously very subjective. But yeah, that's what I look at on the partner side. And then also asking ourselves, so on the self-assessment side, like how were we able to fully support the athlete in the way they expected us to? Like, did they I mean, the obvious things is, have we been with them like 24, not 24/7, but like, do they get an answer from me in a timely manner? Do they always have product on hand, no matter where they are? They may have forgotten it going into a race in Australia. Do they do they receive it there? So that shouldn't be an issue ever. But then also, how what else can we do to for them to increase their brand value and grow their channels, for example, like were we able to help them with that through using and leveraging their content in, let's say, a TV campaign, print ads, paid social, and kind of elevating them. And most recently, I've also added into the mix, like, can we provide content for them to use? Because in the past, we were very much relying on receiving content from our partners that we can use. But maybe now that we have grown out of that stage and now built our internal kind of creative powerhouse, I want to say, now we have different capacities, and that shine through in Oceanside, where we had a team of 4 content reps from our team out there, and they've done an amazing job in capturing the content interviews with our pros, but also with our community on the ground at the event. And then we can now send them content, so for them to use. So really, it's a two-way street, and obviously also offering access to our nutrition panel if they ever need to or find use of that. So I think those are the different aspects that I'd look at the end of a partnership or the end of the year, and try to check in with them to see if they're happy.
I think one of the biggest levers that you can pull on either side of this equation is gotta be communication. And it sounds so simple, but it is difficult when you're going through the day to day of all the other things that you have to do, reaching out to one of your athletes to connect with them. And same thing for the athlete. They're training, they're doing their thing, they're creating content, reaching out to your, contact at the brand. But in my experience, it's always worth it to build that relationship up and to be top front and center on their radar, because so often you call them at just the right time. They've just finished a meeting about, like, we need an athlete to do this thing, or oh, we've extra resources to do this thing, and you pop up on their phone or you pop into their email or whatever it is, and you're top of mind and you get that opportunity. It's so often the case. And if you do that enough over the course of the year, the additional stuff that you're able to pull off, the additional things you can bring in terms of value to the brand or to the athlete, pretty substantial. It adds up pretty quickly. And I think there's a big point to be made for increasing communication just slightly more than you think you probably should, just because that sort of, like, the water cooler conversations that happen within brands and between brands and athletes. I mean, those are the moments where so much value gets unlocked that, yeah, in a scheduled call may not have happened. But if you're consistently making that relationship important, the results come from it for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, and if you meet in real life, it adds even more value to that. And trying to show support from the brand side if you show up at their races, and be there on the race course, and screaming for them, be there at the finish line, and kind of celebrate with them, no matter if they made it to the podium or not, but just be there, and creating those connections and deeper conversations with them. It's what I strive for.
I think that was a masterclass in partnerships for both brands and athletes. I'm so happy that we got to go through all of this. And I think there were some really good tactical takeaways for people, again, on both sides of that equation. We always end every episode with a segment called BPC, brand product content. So since you're the guest, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, I did bring you a brand this time, a brand of product. It's called Peloton. So it's not Peloton, not the cycling company, but it's actually a performance sun protection created by athletes for athletes. And I recently came across this brand through some athletes who are invested in it. For example, Gustav Eden and Christian Blumenfeld, as well as Hayden Hawks, I think, is somewhat involved. And yeah, I've talked to the founder and CEO. I was really impressed by the product. I'm actually testing it right now in sunny California. And they just got FDA approved and will enter the US market rather soon.
Very cool.
So should be available soon for all you folks. Yeah, it's I think the awareness of like skin cancer and like being in the sun, like we all love outdoors and are outdoors a lot, so we need to protect our skins. And I think the awareness is much bigger now than it was in previous years. So yeah, I think it's an interesting brand to look out at and maybe test it yourself. I'm not affiliated with the brand at all, but I'm just super passionate about either protecting myself, but also helping out a small brand that's just up and running and just has a great product.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm gonna have to check that one out. Uh, I'm gonna follow sort of a similar theme of like taking care of yourself, and obviously, people that drink AG1 are definitely, paying attention to what they put in their bodies and trying to, be preventative. I think in a lot of cases of like doing the right things before it's too late. And I think same thing with wearing sunscreen or any kind of sun protection too. The thing that I want to shout out, and I think I've used this before in a BPC, but I actually just did it for the second time. I got a Prenuvo scan, which is it's basically like an MRI that you sit in for an entire hour, and it scans your entire body head to toe. It looks at your brain, it looks at your organs, muscles, everything, and then it uses all this different stuff to really break down and identify if there are any problems whatsoever. And why this is important to me, my sister-in-law, actually, we got kind of like our whole family on it. It's like a one time you just show up and then you get all the data and then you can give it to your doctor and stuff too. But my sister-in-law just did it and they found an aneurysm, which like there would have been no other way for her to know that she had an aneurysm this early in her life. And to be able to catch stuff like that so early, different, I mean, there's a long list of stuff that they're looking for. It kind of blows my mind that that's like a thing that could happen to someone our age. And I'm really glad that we did it and then recommended it to her. So I want to recommend like the entire Second Nature audience. If you really care about preventative health and taking care of your body and all these things, like this is probably one of the better things I think you could do. And bonus, when I was getting my second Prenuvo scan, they gave me a code that I can pass on to like, I asked them, I'm like, can I give this to like everybody or is it like two uses? They said unlimited uses. Anybody that wants to get a $300 discount on this thing can use my code, which I'll put in the show notes. I'm not affiliated other than the fact that I personally believe in it and they happen to give me a code. I don't get a kickback. Maybe I get like actually, no, I guess I do get like a discount on the next one if somebody uses it. But ultimately, like it's better for everybody if we all know what we're working with, and I think that's more important than me getting a little kickback on a Prenuvo scan. So but honestly, like I've done it twice now. It's an hour in an MRI machine, but you get to watch Netflix the whole time. It's not terrible. um and yeah, like I really hope. I was driving home with my wife and I was like, I hope that was unnecessary. I really hope that it's totally clean, but in the event that it's not,
It gives you a
I'm
peace of mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's kind of like how I feel with AG1. I drink it every day in the morning, and it just gives you this peace of mind in the morning that you have set yourself up and given it the basics that the body needs right from the start, and have a fresh, clean start.
that's exactly it. Well, thank you so much for being on the pod today. This was such a fun one, and I'm really glad we had a chance to go through this.
Yeah, I had a pleasure. Thank you so much, Aaron, for making this possible. I hope the listeners took away some lessons and learnings, and they can reach out to me on the Second Nature Slack channel if they need to find out more or some more questions.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks again.